Hermiston, Dr. Fuchel, and Dr. Galati. It's wonderful to see the three of you today, and I just appreciate you so much for taking time to sit down with me and talk a little bit more about ANHL2121, which is a phase 2 study of tovorafenib, DayOne, in relapsed and refractory LCH or Langerhans cell histiocytosis. And before we get started learning a little bit more about this exciting opportunity for relapsed LCH, I'd love for the three of you to have a chance to introduce yourselves. Dr. Galati, let's start with you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for speaking with us. My name is Nitya Gulati. I'm a pediatric oncologist at Weill Cornell Medicine in New York City with a special passion in taking care of children and young adults with histiocytic disorders.
Thank you so much, Deanna, for the opportunity to speak with you and our community today, as well as physicians who may be interested in having patients participate in this trial. I'm a pediatric oncologist and transplant physician at the University of California, San Francisco. I'm also vice chair of the Children's Oncology Group Non-Hodgkin's Lymphoma Committee and am study chair with Nitya, Dr. Galati, as vice chair for ANHL2121.
Hi, Mark Fuchel, solid tumor physician, pediatric oncologist at Seattle Children's Hospital, and I'm also the chair of the LCH subcommittee within COG. So thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I understand this is a really important and exciting opportunity for LCH. And so tovorafenib is a new clinical trial that is through DayOne and Children's Oncology Group. So I'd love if you could just talk a little bit more about DayOne Children's Oncology Group and how this collaboration started, and maybe talk a little bit more as well about the objectives of tovorafenib and this clinical trial.
This is a study of tovorafenib, a pan-RAF inhibitor, for patients that have either relapsed or refractory Langerhans cell histiocytosis. And it's an oral medicine. It's given as a single agent, and it will be given weekly in cycles of 28 days.
Thanks for explaining a bit more about the overall scope of tovorafenib. Dr. Fuchel, what are the is there an age range or anything specific in terms of eligibility?
Yeah, so any patient over 6 months of age and under 21 years of age are eligible for this trial.
The Children's Oncology Group is the largest collaborative consortium for children with cancer in North America. We also have sites in Australia and New Zealand. And the goal of the Children's Oncology Group is really to cure, which means that disease never comes back for every child, adolescent, and young adult who walks into one of our hospitals. There are over 200 children's hospitals who participate in the COG, and the COG has been running for several decades now clinical trials aimed at improving outcomes for children with cancer. Historically, Langerhans cell histiocytosis has not been one of the diseases that COG has focused on, and what is so exciting is that this is actually the first trial within COG directed at children with LCH.
I completely agree. It's really one of the most exciting times to be involved in research directed at Langerhans cell histiocytosis, because I think having the Children's Oncology Group involved is going to be critical for making any progress. We've gotten to a point where we have quite a few options for therapy, but we don't know what really standard should be. We don't really know how to use some of these novel agents. And I think what we're seeing is different institutions using novel agents in different ways. And I think one of the advantages of the Children's Oncology Group has been that having multiple institutions, or most institutions, treating patients in the same way and learning at the same time has allowed us to make progress in all other types of cancer. So I think to have LCH be integrated in Children's Oncology Group is going to be critical for moving forward.
I think I'm very hopeful that it's going to actually accelerate what we learn and what we will be able to provide for our patients, and importantly, to be able to answer the very difficult questions that our patients and our parents ask in terms of what is the best therapy and the best approach for these kids.
And I think what is interesting, as Dr. Fuchel and Dr. Hermiston were pointing out, is what we consider to be the standard of care, which is the LCH3 trial that was conducted several years ago, we know that patients who have multi-system disease or patients who have risk organ involvement, they have very high rates of relapse, somewhere ranging from upwards of 50%. And they need to be treated with several lines of therapy that clearly affects quality of life and has long-term impact, even though the survival is great. And now with the availability of additional MAP kinase pathway inhibitors, we're using it, but we don't know how to use it. We don't know for how long we need to use it. We don't know what the long-term impact is going to be on our children. So I think that's why this clinical trial is unique, because in a systematic way, we are studying the safety profile and the efficacy profile of a novel pan-RAF inhibitor called tovorafenib. And we hope to understand how long we need to treat patients, what the side effects are. We're going to follow them systematically.
Great. It's very exciting. And, I know that there's luckily a lot of options of therapy for LCH, but the fact that this is specifically trying to solve the challenges that you described is incredibly hopeful. What makes tovorafenib a good candidate for treating relapsed LCH?
I think one of the things that I find particularly exciting about this agent in a field of potential medicines that can work in similar ways is that it's an oral drug once a week. It has excellent CNS penetration, which isn't a common feature of most of the other inhibitors there. And one of the really dreaded complications of LCH is LCH-associated neurodegeneration. And because the brain is often a sanctuary site, meaning that there's a blood-brain barrier and it prevents many of our chemotherapy agents from crossing into the brain, the worry is that with other types of therapies, we may be inadvertently leading to an increased risk for neurodegeneration because the medicine can't get there if there are a few LCH cells that are hiding there. And so I think from that perspective, this is a particularly exciting and important medicine in advancing the field.
I think one other exciting aspect of this drug is while it is relatively new, we do have some experience with it in the children's oncology group. And so we have an idea of what kind of side effects we might be able to expect. I think in general, it is our hope that compared to some of the standardly used drugs and that inhibit the MAP kinase pathway, this may actually have fewer side effects in terms of the severe dermatologic, cardiac, or ophthalmologic side effects. Now, of course, we don't really know that until we study it appropriately and robustly, and that's why it's important that we have this as a clinical trial.
We need to study it to see how it fares in our patients with LCH. So at least when they use it in the low-grade glioma population, the drugs seem to have been very well tolerated. They were limited side effects, mainly fatigue being one of them, maybe lower hemoglobin, and rash, but the numbers were very small and they were not severe or permanent. It didn't seem like it.
Right, they can lean on past experience from, as you were saying, Dr. Flüschel, from this other study through Children's Oncology Group using tovorafenib, and to be able to lean on that and then validate that the same results hopefully can happen with LCH. And so it sounds like a very exciting opportunity for families, and I'm sure that physicians with people who they're treating who have relapsed LCH will be eager to learn more about it. How many institutions are participating?
So the study is available for any institution in the Children's Oncology Group. And currently there are over 50 sites that have it open and are able to enroll. And there's another 20 to 30 sites that are in the process of opening that. What is exciting is we have good geographic distribution throughout the country, so that if there is a child that might benefit from this, we should be able to help facilitate getting them appropriate care.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, it's great to hear that there's such a big footprint, because I know access to clinical trials sometimes can be a challenge. So this operating through Children's Oncology Group, it sounds like opens up a lot of doors.
Mhm.
And how can families and physicians find out more about this clinical trial opportunity? I know you can go to clinicaltrials.gov, but are there any other resources that are available?
I think families can go onto the Children's Oncology Group website, and they have delineated it such that there is a link for families and potential patients, so they can get more information there.
For physicians, there's a great description of the background, the rationale, and the eligibility within the protocol on the Children's Oncology Group site. We also have sent out a very short PowerPoint presentation to our institutions to help aid them in describing the study to their colleagues, with just some brief points about why it's being done, what the goals are, and what the expectations are. So.
And of course, all three of us are more than happy to speak with any potential physicians who want to know more about the study. And we hope to be able to create wide access to this potential therapy for patients.
In addition to finding better treatment options for our patients, what is also very important is that through this clinical trial, we will be able to understand the biology of the disease a little bit better, specifically because we're going to be looking at circulating BRAF in the blood and in the bone marrow and try and understand how that responds and correlates with active disease and remission status. We're also going to be looking at and hopefully redefining how we determine responses radiologically, because traditionally we have used X-rays or we've used abdominal sonograms, but in today's day and age where we have CT scans, MRIs, PET scans, we will hopefully be able to identify a more sensitive and specific way of defining disease response and remission, and all of that can happen through the clinical trial.
Wow. There's a lot to be learned here. I feel like this will lead to future opportunities too, to springboard off of what you learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll form the basis of future trials and hopefully better upfront therapies for our patients as well.
Yeah, definitely. The goal we have for Dr. Fluchel's committee is to ultimately develop a frontline trial for children in North America with LCH. Historically, we've had these worldwide trials, but because of regulatory issues, those no longer are feasible. Unfortunately, without clinical trials, it really hampers our ability to learn and to improve therapy, which is always our goals. To, we don't want relapse or recurrence in any children, and that's the long-term goal. So if we can prove that this is safe and feasible in a relapse refractory setting, the next goal would be to really take this up front. Currently, we have no data anywhere in the world to have that where we have directly compared standard chemotherapy versus an inhibitor, or maybe it's the combination that is better. And so for us, and I think what is really exciting is that this is the first step toward that ultimate goal of what is the best therapy, which patients will benefit from which therapies, and really is a big task that Dr. Fluchel's committee has been tasked with, but it's going to be really exciting and fun, I think, to see how this all evolves.
I would agree. I think we're really at this watershed moment in LCH where, like Dr. Glady said, we have this standard of care, vinblastine and prednisone, as most people consider to be the standard of care, which is not curative in a very high percentage of patients. And so I think we can all agree, at least in North America, that MAP kinase inhibition is an accepted option as a reasonable therapy for recurrent LCH. I think there's a lot of debate about whether MAP kinase inhibition, how it should be used or if it should be used in upfront LCH. And there's lots of institutional variability. And I think when that happens, we're not able to learn what the most appropriate therapy is. And so it's really exciting to kind of get the foot in the door with Children's Oncology Group in this relapse setting, where we can hopefully gather lots of data on response, on side effects, the biological correlates, and then having that next step be investigated in the upfront setting. And so there's a lot of work to be done, but it's definitely an exciting time to be involved in it.
Just to add, importantly, use of MAP kinase or BRAF inhibitors is not FDA approved for, newly diagnosed LCH. And so that isn't an option because of insurance reasons for many children. And I think perhaps even more importantly, because that hasn't been carefully studied in this population, and because the MAP kinase pathway is a pathway that actually operates normally in every single cell in our body, we don't know what the long-term consequences of using these drugs for years and years and years actually are. And while that is being done in a few places, it really needs to be methodically and systematically studied, as Dr. Gulati suggested, so that we know what is best for patients and safest for patients.
Well, I'm excited. Anytime we hear they're at a watershed moment, for
Yes,
for a rare
great.
disease like histiocytosis, you get chills. I was swept into the LCH world over 30 years ago, and I remember just the difference in therapy then. So to see where we're at today is incredible. And I know that the three of you and your colleagues are so passionate about what you're doing, and just I'm so grateful for everything that you pour into this, because that is what has brought us to where we are. And I'm just really excited about where you're already thinking, what can come from this, and then what's next, because to me that feels like what you said at the very beginning, Dr. Hermiston, which is let's find cures. And I am not sure that we thought we'd get there this quickly, that we're talking about, we have these effective therapies, but how do we actually make them curative? So it's a really amazing moment for LCH and for histiocytosis.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today, Deanna. We really appreciate it.